Everyone thought HOA Karen's dog was a symbol of loyalty and love, but one day, everything turned out completely differently. HOA Karen was a wealthy and powerful woman who took immense pride in her home and status, and she was fiercely protective of both. She owned a beautiful yet dangerous dog that she treated like a child, doting on it endlessly. The dog was extremely loyal and intelligent, but due to Karen's lack of proper training and her prideful attitude, it often scared and intimidated anyone who came near. Neighbors and passers-by would whisper about Karen and her dog, wary of their presence. But no one dared speak up too boldly because of Karen's wealth and influence. Many times, people tried to warn her about her dog's behavior, but Karen was so immersed in her own confidence and arrogance that she dismissed every caution. She believed her dog was simply loyal and adorable, and refused to see the danger it posed. One day, everything changed in an instant. A small child wandered too close to Karen's property while playing, and the dog, which had previously shown aggressive tendencies, suddenly lunged at the child. The child's parents were terrified and immediately contacted the authorities, filing a formal complaint. Karen initially tried to downplay the situation, thinking it would blow over, but when police officers and animal control arrived, she realized the gravity of what had happened. The case went to court, and neighbors testified that the dog had often intimidated and threatened people, and that Karen had been negligent in properly training it. The court ruled against Karen. She was fined, and the dog was to be handed over to the Animal Control Authority to ensure it would live in a safe and supervised environment. This was a crushing blow for Karen, shattering her pride and forcing her to confront the consequences of her negligence. The dog was taken away, leaving a void in her life, and Karen began reflecting on how her arrogance and carelessness had brought her to this point. From that day forward, Karen not only reconsidered her behavior, but also committed to being more responsible and cautious, both with her pets and with the people around her. She realized that love alone was not enough. Responsibility and accountability were equally crucial. Losing the dog forced her to face uncomfortable truths about herself and the life she had built, and she slowly began making changes to ensure such a dangerous lapse would never happen again. The experience left a lasting mark on her, teaching her that even the most loyal creature could become a threat if neglected or spoiled, and that true care required both affection and discipline. Karen's journey had begun, not just toward regaining control over her life, but toward understanding that respect for others, human or animal, was essential for a safe and harmonious existence. After the dog was taken away by animal control, Karen felt a mix of emptiness, guilt, and disbelief. The house, once filled with her dog's presence and energy, now felt unusually silent, and every corner reminded her of what she had lost. She couldn't ignore the constant feeling that her pride had caused irreparable damage, not only to her life, but potentially to someone else's as well. Karen began attending classes on responsible pet ownership and even sought advice from professional dog trainers to understand where she had gone wrong. Every day she reflected on her own behavior, realizing that her arrogance and dismissive attitude toward warnings had led to a dangerous situation that could have been avoided. Meanwhile, the dog, now in the care of animal control, was evaluated and placed in a specially designed rehabilitation environment. Trainers worked tirelessly to calm its aggressive tendencies using patience, structured routines, and socialization techniques. Slowly, the dog began to regain trust in humans while learning to manage its instincts. Karen, observing the dog's progress from a distance through updates from the agency, felt both relief and deep sorrow. She wished she could have done more to prevent the incident, and every update reminded her of the responsibility that comes with caring for a powerful animal. The experience profoundly changed Karen's outlook on life. She started volunteering at local animal shelters, advocating for safe pet ownership, and sharing her story to warn others of the dangers of negligence. Her relationships with neighbors improved as she approached them humbly, listening to concerns and genuinely attempting to make amends for her past behavior. At home, she reorganized her life to prioritize empathy, responsibility, and awareness, understanding that wealth and power could not excuse carelessness. Months later, she visited the animal control facility under supervision, seeing her former dog interacting safely with other animals and humans. Watching the dog thrive in a secure environment gave Karen a mix of hope and humility. She realized that love alone was never enough. Proper guidance, attention, and respect for boundaries were crucial for every creature, human or animal. Karen's transformation was gradual but genuine, and while she still missed the companionship of her dog, she had gained something far more valuable: an understanding of responsibility, humility, and the importance of protecting and respecting life. The dog's rehabilitation served as a reminder that even mistakes with serious consequences could be corrected when care, patience, and dedication were applied. Karen continued to live in her home, but now with a different mindset, more attentive, more compassionate, and far more aware of the impact of her actions. She no longer allowed her pride to dictate her decisions, realizing that true power came from accountability, love, and understanding. In the end, both Karen and her dog found their paths toward safety and personal growth. Karen learning the true meaning of responsibility, and her dog finally able to live peacefully without posing a threat to anyone, a testament to how even the gravest mistakes can lead to lessons that transform lives. Everyone in the neighborhood believed that HOA Karen's dog was a symbol of loyalty and love, the kind of pet every responsible owner would cherish. But in reality, things were far more complicated than anyone imagined. Karen was a wealthy, powerful woman who took immense pride in her luxurious home and the life she had built, and she was fiercely protective of everything she considered hers. She owned a large, beautiful dog with a glossy coat and sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She treated it like a child, showering it with affection and attention, yet she was blind to the subtle hints of aggression that often surfaced when strangers approached. The dog was incredibly loyal, intelligent, and physically imposing, but due to Karen's lack of proper training and her prideful, self-absorbed attitude, it often intimidated anyone who came near the property. Neighbors and passers-by whispered stories about the dog's threatening presence, some claiming it had growled at them without provocation or bared its teeth in a warning. Yet most people kept their distance, fearing Karen's wealth, influence, and confrontational nature. Over the years, several visitors had tried to caution Karen, pointing out that her dog could one day become dangerous, but she waved off every warning, confident in her judgment and convinced that the dog's loyalty meant it could do no real harm. She believed that as long as she loved it, nothing bad could happen, and she often displayed it proudly as a symbol of her power and status. One sunny afternoon, however, her carefully maintained sense of control began to unravel. A small child playing nearby wandered too close to Karen's property out of curiosity, enchanted by the dog's size and beauty without realizing the potential danger. At that moment, Karen was distracted, engaged in a phone call, unaware of the impending disaster. The dog, which had shown subtle signs of unease toward strangers before, suddenly stiffened, its eyes locking onto the child. In an instant, it lunged. The child screamed, and the parents, horrified, rushed toward the scene. Karen, finally noticing, froze in panic and shouted, but it was too late. The dog had already made contact, and chaos erupted in the otherwise quiet neighborhood. The parents, terrified and desperate, immediately contacted authorities, calling both the police and the animal control agency. Karen initially tried to downplay the incident, insisting that the child had provoked the dog or gotten too close. But the seriousness of the situation quickly became apparent as officers arrived, taking statements and restraining the dog. Witnesses, including neighbors who had long feared the animal, confirmed that it had often intimidated and frightened people and that Karen had done little to address the aggressive behavior. The case escalated quickly, landing Karen in court, where she faced scrutiny and judgment not only for her negligence but also for her arrogance and refusal to take warnings seriously. The judge listened carefully to testimonies and evidence, acknowledging the dog's loyalty but emphasizing its potential to cause real harm if left untrained. The verdict was clear and strict. Karen was fined heavily for negligence, and the dog was to be handed over to animal control to ensure it would live in a controlled and safe environment away from public danger. This ruling hit Karen hard, shattering her pride and forcing her to confront the reality of her actions. She felt a complex mix of anger, sorrow, and guilt, realizing that her wealth and status could not shield her from consequences when negligence and disregard for safety were involved. The dog, once the symbol of her power and affection, was now gone, leaving a void in her home and her life. Alone in her quiet mansion, Karen began to reflect deeply on the even.